All right, Fern, did you ever think this day would happen?
Actually, yes, I did think it would happen. I'm going to be very honest with you. I didn't know when. I didn't think we would get to 100 episodes with an interview with Coach Glassman in the time frame that we did it.
See, I thought it would happen, but I thought for sure I would have left you by now, and it would have been either just me or just you. Like the band would have broken up. Surprisingly, we're
Well, you can't,
stronger.
but you also can't leave the talent, right? Like if you left me, then you would have nothing, right? It's just like, you know,
Oh, it would fall apart without you. Yeah,
yeah.
with that goes without saying. But I don't know that people ask us all the time, what made you start? When did you start? And it's something you and I talked about for years. And I think we were just literally having a conversation at some point in April, and we were like, hey, let's hit record and do this thing.
Yeah, we talked about it for probably way too long, and then it really just kind of took off. And even when we started it, we had plans for like how many episodes we were going to do, and then that spiraled out of control. I mean, I was looking back. I think our first episode dropped around like April 14th or 15th, and it's now October, around the same. So what is that? 6 months, 100 episodes in 6 months, and and we're not slowing down. So.
You know what? As you say that, this is a true statement, and it's going to be like hyperbole, but I really feel like we put out the most podcasts in the world. Because, no, I know that sounds crazy, but
That does sound really stupid.
no, but I'm talking like real deal podcasts, right? Because even like the Gary V's of the world, they'll drop something daily, but they're 5 minutes, they're 10 minutes. In the last 6 months, we've put out 100 like every episode was a legit conversation or interview with someone that mattered in the world of fitness.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like total volume, I mean, it's probably safe to say that we've done a minimum in 6 months. We've recorded a minimum of 85 to 90 hours of content, if not more than that, just of the podcast. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm super happy with it. I mean, there's obviously some things that we can improve on and things that you and I are working on to make this better. But I think the plan, what you and I did agree with was volume. Like, let's go. Let's keep recording. Let's not stop. Let's just keep doing it and doing it more. And then once we think we've done enough, we just do more. And I think that's been fun. It's been fun to kind of run at a pace with another person who also wants to run that fast.
Yeah, and I think selfishly, we both really enjoy our conversations. Yesterday's episode with Stu, it's a great conversation. We have an episode coming out next week where you talked with, another doctor talking CrossFit health. And selfishly, we really enjoy talking to these people. And we still, we're successful in the CrossFit world, but we still feel humbled and privileged to be given the opportunity to talk to these people. And also, let this be a lesson to all you listeners out there. You still just gotta hustle. Like that's what we do. Like we put the work in. I mean, every day we're working on the podcast. We're working on our mentor group. We're trying to develop people. It's not coming, without the elbow grease that goes along with it. And you're running a box. We're both married. You've got like 17 children. So, and at least one of them is completely insane. If you follow Fern on Instagram, you'll see that.
They're both completely insane. But no, it's been cool because referencing both of those conversations that you're talking about the podcast earlier, like I learned something in both of those podcasts. Like I literally walked away with something I'm going to try. Like that's something I have not thought of and something I'm going to try to utilize.
You're going to try to eat better? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not
Oh,
my,
okay.
that's your thing. That's not my thing.
But, we started the podcast and I think I've owned multiple businesses, multiple affiliates, and I always try to use that CrossFit model, which is, we've taken from Coach Glassman, which is put that shit out there for free. And if you put out good quality, if you chase excellence, people will want to support you. They'll want to buy into what you're doing. And, accidentally for us, we put out this podcast and people started hitting us up like, hey, how can we learn from you? What can you teach us? I'm a coach, I'm a box owner, or I just want to learn more. And then all of a sudden we have this mentor group that's exploding. People can check it out on our website, besthouroftheirday.com. But again, that was accidental as well.
Yeah, and it's really fun, and I think you would agree. It's just an extension of the thing that we love to do so much on the weekends, which is, we have the good fortune of working, for CrossFit, for Coach Glassman, and delivering that message on the weekend. And this is just an extension of that, a little deeper dive, and it's both something we're super passionate about it. So, I do have people that kind of reach out and ask me, like, how do you do so much stuff? And admittedly, I've overstretched myself on many occasions, but it's really hard to not do more when you really love what you do.
I think that's it. I joke around. I sold my box in 2014 and claimed that I was retired. And I think anyone that knows me knows that's not the case. But when I say that, what I really mean is I get to work on the things I enjoy. And this has truly become a passion project and something I really look forward to. Having you and Todd and Katie and other people to just constantly bounce ideas off of, constantly talk to, has been really fun for me. And, for those listeners, we don't push it a lot because I think it's kind of like a business, but at the same time, when you enjoy it, we don't treat it like a business, but we do have that mentor group and people can learn more about it over at besthouroftheirday.com. We don't open it up all the time because we do try to keep it intimate and we try to help people grow. But if you're interested in finding out more, head over to the website. If you have questions about it, hit us up on email or Instagram or whatever works for you. But yeah, we're willing to take a few more people. And, it's only because this is truly what we enjoy doing.
And if that's not something you're interested in, that's cool. But because we made it to episode 100, because this interview is with Coach Glassman, and because Matt Albrizio and Forever Fierce are just a good company and he's a good dude, we do have a gift for everybody that's been listening along the way. So this is a thank you from us to you for episode 100. Go to our website, click the link. First 50 people there are going to get a free, no, this isn't like a bait and switch where we charge you $500 afterwards for a t-shirt or something like that. You get a free best hour of their day t-shirt, which we will send to you. And again, that is thanks to Matt and his team because we like them, but it's more a thank you to all of you who listen to the podcast because because you guys care helps us continue to figure out more ways to make the podcast better, more value to you guys, and more fun along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Big shout out to Forever Fierce. You had a great interview with them. They're in our archives. If you do apparel for your box, definitely reach out to them because it's great quality. And more important than the quality, it's great customer service. Because as we've learned along the way, that's the most important thing with dealing with people. And like Fern just said, we appreciate it. I know every weekend that someone comes up to me and asks me about the show or tells me that they listen to the show, I get excited. I love the DMs where it's like, hey, this really made a difference because that's why we do this. What are you laughing at over there?
Because I have another challenge. I'm willing to give away a free month of the mentorship for anybody who, without watching the video version of our interview with Coach Glassman, if they just listen to it, if they can figure out at what point you are completely lost.
I mean, spoiler alert, it was about 8 seconds in, but no, there wasn't a specific point. I like it. I like it. If you can pinpoint that, Fern's giving you a free month. And speaking of, let's explain what happened. We go to the 10-year affiliate gathering.
Yep.
Amazing speech by Coach Glassman, like passion. Like Coach Glassman, when he talks, you want to run headfirst through a brick wall. Like I was lucky enough to have him at my level 1 back in 2007, and he got me to do the zone and paleo and all that. And I didn't even know who he was at the time, just some dude that was on those videos. But he gives this great speech, and then Savon gets on stage, the guy that used to run the CrossFit podcast, and says, hey, Coach Glassman's going to do a handful of podcasts. Let me know if you're interested. And Fern and I were sitting next to each other, and we kind of looked at each other and like, I feel almost like we manifested it because it was really a big goal of mine to get Coach Glassman on the show.
Yeah, it was something we set out kind of from day one. We're like, hey, when we do this, like eventually we got to have Coach on because that, like, obviously he's the guy that started all this. And we went there with the intention of doing podcasts anyway, with potentially trying to steal some of his time while he was there, if at all possible. And then this opportunity came up. So, and Coach was, obviously just, generous enough with his time that he sat down and he I don't know how long he talked after that, but I mean, we weren't the only people that talked to him. I think we might have talked to him the longest, but he sat down with quite a few people afterwards and just talked. So the podcast you guys are going to hear after this doesn't sound the same as all the other ones we've done, because it was just kind of on the fly. I don't even know when they hit record on this, but as far as when in our conversation, but it was good. He elaborated on some things. I think, he is a genius, obviously. So, sometimes I think you really have to kind of, if you're Jay, you just can't keep up at all with what he's saying. But you really do kind of have to pay attention and really kind of lean in and really make it a really concerted effort to follow where he's going, because he's fast, he's deep, and he's got a lot of things going on. So it was a fun discussion, and I was happy to carry you through that.
Yeah, and for the record, Fern did carry me through. So I've told this story to a couple people. I don't think I've said it on the show, but basically, the conversation starts off, and Coach Glassman had heard about my sale of Albany CrossFit, and actually he gave me a shout out on his interview with Arm & Hammer. So check that out at the end, where he refers to Fern as Vern. but anyway, I do think he said Fern. For the record, I do believe he said Fern.
He didn't, but it is funny because he said Vern, which is somebody of our mentor group has a running joke that we now have what is called Fernacular. It's just things that I say on the fly. And then when he said Fern, I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. Vern, Fern, Fernacular. But anyway, yeah.
No, so we're sitting there. The conversation moves from like, hey, fluff, to health. And so, we got our headsets on. I'm listening. And I think we've both improved as interviewers. We let people talk. We kind of bounce well off one another. And I'm looking into his eyes, because we're set up in a way, you can see the picture on our Instagram where Fern and I are sitting side by side. And I'm like a foot away from Glassman, looking in his eyes. He's talking at one point, and I'm like, in my head, I remember this is the moment. This is what went through my head. I said, what the fuck is happening? That's literally what went through my head. I was like, what are we talking about? Where are we? And then the very next thought in my mind was, I really hope Fern is understanding this. And I was trying to, like, without looking at you or touching you, give you the cue to continue this conversation. Because it literally would have been silence. I couldn't even have thought of something subtle to say. It would have just been me staring at him awkwardly in silence. So luckily, you picked me up. That was the moment you picked me up. You threw me on your shoulders, and you said, "You're coming with me, Jay."
That's why my back was hurting so much after.
So anyway, he might not know your name with the correct spelling.
Doesn't matter.
But you were able to follow along. So I want to hear from our listeners of when they thought that moment was. But I think it's something I'm really proud of. This is, I remember when we first started this podcast, we'd be like, hey, we're going to get 100 listeners on this episode. And we'd be like, I would send you screenshots and we'd talk about it. And now we get thousands of downloads on every episode. We have people reaching out to us to be on the show. We've had some of the best in the world aside from Coach Glassman, and it's only going to continue to grow and get better. So we're pretty excited to present this, right, Fern? Or should I say Vern?
I'm hoping that this episode is going to push us to the point where you're not recording podcasts in your closet anymore.
Oh, never. I will always, for those that don't see it, yeah, Fern has to watch me in the closet, but it's quiet. There's carpet, so I don't get any echo. My wife doesn't yell at me whenever I put these headphones on, she's like, you talk so loud when you have those headphones. I'm like, you do the same. Like, you realize you do the same when you're on the phone or when you have a call. No, I don't. And I've learned this from you and your lovely wife, Jess. Don't argue with your wife. I got to get on her good side. She's still mad at me about what I said.
Yep.
On a former episode.
All right, guys. Again, let us know what you think of the episode. Figure out if you can determine when Jay got lost. Go to our website, besthouroftheirday.com. Get a free t-shirt, first 50 people. If you're interested in the mentor group, hit us up. But without further ado, here's our interview with Coach Glassman.
For allowing me to do that, actually. That's your
crazy cool. And is the new guy, it's going well?
I think it took a couple of years to get them back on track. The culture changed. I was gone. And it took a couple of years, but I think they're getting there. I also think I sold at a time where a lot of affiliates opened, so it impacted them to some extent there. And a lot of the members that I had kind of evacuated, but now they're getting there again. I had over 500 members at one point, so I don't think they are quite there, but they're doing well.
It's never going to be as good as when you had it, right?
Back in the day, the glory days. The glory days.
Is that because it was me, or I think the owner of the box dictates the culture, and my culture, especially back then, was let's have a really good time. And you can't explain that to somebody, and you can't necessarily teach that. And kind of goes along to the one thing that I wanted to say. So Fern and I have a podcast called Best Hour of Their Day, and it's all about.
I love it.
You love the podcast? You're a big listener?
I get it, though. I get the concept already.
Well,
I've been telling people we work with the best people in your community, the most proactive, the most exciting, the most successful, and for what many of them is the best hour of their day.
that's
Like,
it was a
you
long
couldn't
lesson.
ask for more than that.
No.
To work with the people we do at what is probably the highlight of their day. And their lives are rich. It's not like the rest of it sucks.
Yeah.
It's just that it's very personal time for them, so I get it. What are you doing now? Or you got another box?
I don't currently have another box. Fern and I both work on the seminar staff.
Yeah.
So we've both put in over 200 seminars, traveling the world. Fern still owns a box.
I still have a gym in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And outside of that, our goal is just to help develop coaches, help develop
Great.
CrossFit trainers. So I learned in 2007, I left CrossFit Toronto, did my level 1. You ran the whole thing. You were there. And I would have run through that wall afterwards, like, I'm doing the zone. I'm doing paleo. This is the only way to go. Yoga's stupid. All this other stuff is stupid. Not that you said that. That's how I interpreted it. And then over the course of a few years, I realized this is bigger than that, and it's providing people the best hour.
Jason,
of their
was
day.
Eva T at that cert?
She was.
And Pat Sherwood?
Pat Sherwood was there. Eva
I
T.
know. I remember the cert. And it was raining?
It was freezing cold in a warehouse in Toronto, and
Yep.
a little bit of a sad story. The guy I sat next to, I found out recently passed away. His name was Barry, CrossFit Orange, old box. But I remember he got pulled up to do overheads. You didn't squat. You did jerks against Nicole, and Nicole demolished him.
What did he pass away from?
I'm not sure. Someone literally just crossed paths with me and told me about it.
I have a story to tell about that cert.
I'd love to hear it.
At the first break, there was a guy in a long kind of trench coat standing there. And he came walking up to me, and I said, "Can I do something for you?" He goes, "I just came to introduce myself." And it turned out he's a pediatric cardiovascular surgeon, and his brother is a young man who is very well known to us that joined the American military and was in Delta Force, was at CAG, and we'd worked with him and knew him very well. But the brothers couldn't be less alike. The cardiac surgeon, as you'd imagine from the Delta Force guy, he had all of the differences you'd expect to find. But the surgeon's story was that they're doing high-risk emergency pediatric surgery on newborns, and that their caseload had forever been you couldn't do more than 3 of these surgeries a day, and that his whole team was now averaging 4 to 4.25 per day, and it was CrossFit was making the difference because you only do as many as your hands are steady, your vision's good, you're not cramping and fatiguing, or you just don't get the same outcome if you're not the same surgeon. And so he says, I came here today to tell you that you're saving lives by us pediatric cardiovascular surgeons doing CrossFit. And that stood out at that event.
Well, a lot stood out to me there, and it changed my life. The question I wanted to ask is, I learned somewhere along the line, hey, this is bigger than just fitness. I'm changing their lives by giving them that best hour. When in your journey, teaching others, coaching others, did you realize that and say, this is bigger than they're getting below parallel, they're pushing their knees out, but they're actually living a better life, and I have a big role in that.
I probably knew it for a long time, but I do remember very distinctly in 2012 or 2010, maybe it was 11, when Lauren opened up Captain CrossFit. I told her that if you were to take a new member and ask them to just put on an index card that they're going to show no one ever, what it would take, what would be the hallmarks of them being a better person, and anything's fair. better dad, better lover, better golfer, better student, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, lower cholesterol, whatever it is would make you better. Put that away, hide it in a book somewhere. Don't show anyone or think about it. And 6 months later, after doing CrossFit, go back and see how many of those things were better. And I don't think you can put anything down on the paper that wouldn't have been improved by doing what we're doing. And so what we're engaging is, you know, and let me tell you another one. Like, I got to give Philippe credit again. This is an odd one. At the turn of the century, so this would have been, so at least I've known for at least 20 years, but at the dawning of 2000, so it was like January 1st, 2000, at about 12:03. So we're 3 minutes into New Year. Philippe Kahn sends me a message, a text, and an email, and he says, and he'd never really, I don't think, ever said anything nice to me before, fundamentally. But what he says is, I'm not sure sitting here right now if I'm alive because of you or life's worth living because of you, but either way, thanks. And I was just like, wow. I mean, I'll take it, you know? And I said, well, you're very welcome, and thank you for the kind words, sir. You know, but that's powerful. I'm either alive because this is from a guy that's got, he doesn't gush, you know? But that was just that was his considered view. He was either alive or it was worth living because of CrossFit. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really easy to talk about saving lives, but the improving them, you can't measure or really talk about. But there's no one that doesn't recognize that's engaged in this.
On that note, Coach, and you brought something. There was a topic that came up in the Q&A, which I thought your answer to the question was pretty profound in my mind about from an affiliate owner standpoint and a coach's standpoint. A lot of people are they have this fear that people are scared of CrossFit, and your response was, it's not CrossFit because you decided to do it smarter.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of why we started the podcast, and it's because what we're seeing, and I'd love to get both of your thoughts on this, is people are starting to get educated, but what they're doing is, in some instances, abandoning the brand and therefore perpetuating some of the negativity that has arisen around that. And I haven't heard it put that succinctly, and I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So what would you tell people? Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Is my question.
You know, I don't know. Like, I want to go back to dear Tony Blauer again. You know, I'm like, there's an outstanding probability. He's a very strong man. He's a very capable guy. You know, he's a great martial artist. He's a brilliant man, in fact. But it's exceedingly unlikely that he would ever end up under a barbell overhead in my gym. And that's just, I don't need a guy pressing that this is your idea of your hands over your head. You know, I'd rather spend that time trying to stretch those arms out, have you hanging. And that's what I gave him to do. I told him, hang from a bar until you can't stand it anymore and get narrower and narrower and force your shoulders into your ears. Because hanging from a bar, it looks like he can go overhead, you know, hanging from the pull-up bar. But if I can't check off the prerequisites, we don't move forward under any circumstances. And that's not a hard thing for me to do, to tell them, no, dude, it's got to look right with PVC.
But you understand the challenge for some box owners. They would say, I can't do that because I'm going to lose these members.
Yeah. And maybe I lost some people over that, but I don't think so. I don't.
I
But
can promise you're definitely going to lose members if you let them progress the wrong way.
Well, they're going to get hurt.
They're
going
gonna
to
get
leave.
hurt.
For sure.
How do we teach box owners and coaches that they do need to take that step back? And, you know, you mentioned it earlier when you're saying, hey, people are jumping to sport, bypassing this whole hierarchy of nutrition, of metabolic conditioning, gymnastics.
Jason,
Yes.
you're asking me to explain why it is when you get a D in calculus 2. I'm telling you, do not take calculus 3. I mean, I don't have a lot of patience for the subject, really. But and it's not my fault. You know, it ain't gonna work for you. You're not there. And I know Tony ignored my advice, by the way.
Well, you can tell.
I know.
You look at his shoulder position now.
Well, you know what's funny is he was dripping sweat with the PVC just talking. I'm like, dude, you got a long ways to go, and there's gonna be no shortcut. And so your success is going to be dependent on how much gumption you have for enduring the discomfort of trying to fix those fucking shoulders.
And I find that to be the challenge a lot of times, is trying to get, and we see this at the level 1 and the level 2s, and sometimes our answer probably sounds a little gray, but the answer is you're going to have to work harder and be smarter about progressing athletes to these sometimes not even more advanced movements, sometimes into basic movements. And a lot of people don't even like the answer, but it's kind of what you're saying. You're like, there is no other answer.
That's what Greg's saying about being a professional trainer, because the thing about a profession is there can't be a cookie cutter approach. It has to be a professional looking at his particular client or group of clients and giving them specific treatments or approaches that work for them in that moment. And that can't be standardized the way a Taco Bell can.
Yeah, and what would be the best way for, people leave their level 1, and we get hit up all the time, and the entire staff. How do I get to that level? What do you tell them? Okay, well, obviously 6 months from now, come back, take your level 2. We're going to evaluate you. After that, take your level 3. What can a coach that leaves their level 1 fired up do to get to that point?
I don't have easy answer for you. And I don't think I have more talents or capacity in that area than you do, young man. So,
Well, you brought up something again in the talk that I was not aware of, but as soon as you said it, it made sense, which is the website. And a lot of people have questions about the website, like the community at large. But when you described it as a B2B tool, right? Now instead of a B2C tool, now I understood it, and now that gives me more ammo to go back to the affiliates and say that the site used to be for athletes and customers. The site is now for you to educate yourself to become a professional, like Russ was saying.
Here's something I didn't explain today, and it's the tempo, and we're 3 on 1 off, of course, but days 1 and 3 are what we're calling essentials. And so there's good studies, there's bad studies, there's science education. We're publishing the studies in the original. If it sits behind a paywall, we're pulling it out, stealing it, and giving it away. Where the science is shitty, we're explaining in the intro how it is that this thing has come to conclusions that aren't real. But then on that in between day, what we call the at home day, where you see the living room set and where the meal video is, there's also in that section a mainstream media covering of a study that we've also included in its entirety somewhere else. And I just think of my mom, and I think of Nicole's mom. We laugh about it because we both have moms that ain't ever going to do a fucking thing. Admire Nicole's encouragement. And Nicole makes herself nuts over it. I quit thinking about that 20 years ago, but I'm 20 years older than Nicole at least. And so I've just given up on my mom a long time. I remember putting my mom on a rower, and she takes 3 pulls, and he goes, "I'm not going to do this all day." And I go, "It's been 17, 18, 19 fucking seconds." "No, it's not." And that's where we're at. The counter's counting, and she's telling me it's not saying 18, 19, 20, 21 seconds. And she's done because she's been on the rower too long. And I'm like, I would quit if you were fucking Klein. You know what I mean? Like, I hate you. It's like unbelievable. And Nicole has the same deal. I don't know how you get past those people you don't. But I would say I've not had trouble, motivating and encouraging. I get excited by what people are doing, and I don't know what I was talking about either.
I know you take great pride in the site. It's obvious, and I'll say
on that day, my hope is that you could print things up and give them to people. And so, like I said, my mom is not going to read a peer-reviewed study out of the American Journal of Clinical Endocrinology, but if the Houston Chronicle runs a piece that says, "Hey, we're rethinking if red meat's bad for you or not," that she'll read. And so there's some great resources there. And what I'd do is I'd bring the real study in for the doctor and give them the mainstream one and share the mainstream stuff. But I really liked having a handout in the gym. And I made a pretty good point of keeping a printer full of ink and had a nice stapler, and I would print up enough copies to get me through a day.
He'd tell you what books to read, too.
Yeah. And we had resources for you,
Is that where the journal came from?
Mm-hmm.
So you think gym owners should have those resources available to their members, meaning they should be printing that stuff out?
I would. I'd share it.
That in my, we're coming up on 10 years at our affiliate next month, and that can be a really difficult conversation when somebody comes in, they're on statins. Obviously we're not going to, hop into the, the doctor lane. That's not what we do. But trying to have an educated conversation about that can be really difficult, because you're immediately combated by, well, my doctor said I have to be on this because of, this is what we're getting. And we all know that a lot of that is inaccurate.
Yes.
And it's trying to start to have that conversation can be really challenging for a lot of
We've told doctors in our medical community that we've resisted involvement with a lot of physicians because I'm afraid that someone dear to me would end up in their care and be told that they need to cut the fat out of their diet and get on statins. And so a big chunk of what we've done in this is networking and hubbing these doctors with the MDO1 is we'll probably launch in October a physician referral network, and we're going to be able to, in every neighborhood, tell you where you might go to a doctor that when you show up and you're on statins, he's going, you got to get off these fucking things, and then it's not our burden. But that is a problem, and you would be a fool to tell somebody to get off their statins, directly. We were in D.C., and a politician said at the end of our meeting,
no names, please, Greg.
No, or even what? But a politician said to us, "Great meeting, glad you're here, thank you." And this occupational licensure thing is just an abomination, and because he'd gotten a shit ton of emails, and declaring it an abomination, that was all he needed. He didn't care before he got the emails about the abomination, but after he got thousands of emails, he really cared. And he says, and here we are at the point at the end of the discussion. He goes, and the way the law works, he's telling me, I can't legally ask for a donation here in the office. That would be against the law, and I'm not going to break the law. But if outside the office, if you wanted to talk to either Karen or Joe or Bob, and they're all raising their hands, they could take you up and you just go out in the hall and we could do this thing. And like he just asked for a donation. And so we went out in the hall, we made a donation. The legal maximum to he and his colleagues, and so that we could navigate the fucking town better. Fuck, it couldn't be worse. So on statins, when I'm getting in front of a crowd, like I got hit the other night. I'm on a statin. You think I should get off it? And I'm like, we got cameras rolling and shit. And I'm like, fuck. I go, I can't tell you to get off your statins, okay? I can't. But, and so I'm going to start this thing next time. Look, as far as I'm concerned, whatever drug you're on, you ought to be doing everything you can to get the fuck off it, whatever it is. And if you're taking some pill that keeps your heart beating, well, for God's sakes, don't stop that one. But as far as I'm concerned, everyone's over-medicated. And if you're on an antihypertensive and we start working out here and you start eating right, you're going to be dangerously over-medicated in short order. And so read between the lines and don't ask the question, because you know what I think and I'm just not allowed to tell you. So it's kind of like the campaign contribution.
But you can leave a donation outside.
That's right. That's right. So I'm going to tell you when,
drop it in the jar.
I can't tell you to quit a statin. I could get in trouble for that. But if you were my mom or my dad, I'd insist you get off the fucking statins. And there, I just did it. But you're right, Vern. You got to be careful. And you worry they're going to go back to the doctor, and the doctor's going to say, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But one of the things we can do is start to look at, like, the Crestor literature and point out that this 38% or 42% improvement.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was Mo that remembered. Crestor, 42%. That was a change in the relative risk, not the absolute risk. And it's a parlor game. It's a sleight of hand. That is not the justification for taking a pill because of a change in the relative risk. Things that happen very rarely, it does not mean much to reduce the chance of it by 42% if it's an extremely rare
because that
event.
might be the difference between 0.11 or 0.12.
And what it ends up to,
I saw that talk at the health conference too.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And the guys that are on that, there's no rejoinder to that. No one's rebutting it. No one comes out from Crestor and goes, yeah, you're right. You pretend like it wasn't said.
On that note, as we continue,
and the other thing is is the idea of the statins is the belief is that cholesterol is playing a deleterious, or fat is that ingested cholesterol is rising cholesterol levels. There's no evidence for that, and but furthermore, cholesterol may contribute to plaques, but plaques' contribution to cardiovascular disease, it may be that plaque causes heart disease the same way that a plaster cast causes a broken arm. Not at all. It's the artery's attempt to repair itself from the inside because it's dead on the outside and it's about to rupture. And the evidence for that is compelling. And it's the vasovasorum. They have a reduced blood flow, and so and it's always at these high pressure nodes, at these turns and places of remarkable pressure where accidents are typical to occur, that we see these thick plaques, and it's casting something that isn't doing well on the other side at all. And so is it ideal? No. Is it pathological? Yes, but it's probably better than having a artery split wide open.
From an affiliate standpoint, as we continue to have these conversations and kind of pull the curtain back on a lot of that stuff, what's your vision for affiliates at the 20-year plus gathering? What do affiliates need to address in order to be seen as a center for health versus a center for elite fitness, as it kind of has in the past?
I really like this idea of someone points to an epidemiological survey kind of study, and you go, listen, this isn't science, and here's the problems with it. You just need to have that kind of confidence.
Yeah.
Look, you need to look at the absolute risk, not the relative risk. I'm reading Theodore Dalrymple right now, the physician writer, and he says his family's riddled with colon cancer. He's 78, and he hasn't had a colonoscopy. And he says, and I searched the literature looking for reasons not to have a colonoscopy. And he goes, and I just found a study recently, and it had a 22% decrease in mortality with a colonoscopy or some damn thing. And he said that they were showing the relative risk, not the absolute risk. And he started off by saying that the greatest of the medical physician writers was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the physician that wrote Sherlock Holmes. And he said that in one of the episodes he talks about the dog that didn't bark. And there was a case where the dog didn't bark, and it would have. And so that suggests that the dog might have known the killer, right? And the general takeaway was that often the dog that doesn't bark says more than the one that does. And Dalrymple's read on that is that this is allegorical for if there's an obvious question that should be asked and isn't being answered, then you can assume what's wrong. And he says the need to see the difference in absolute risk is so compelling that the fact that it's not there is all the evidence he needs for this is a scam. That there's a reason you weren't shown that, and it's the dog that doesn't bark. And he says, so I found in this study that says there's an increased risk of death without a colonoscopy. He uses it to interpret just the other because it wouldn't give the figures in absolute risk, or he could see the difference. I like that. This isn't a lot different than you got your hand behind your back and the cop's telling you he wants to see your fucking hand, you know? And at some point, if you don't show the hand, you're going to get shot because the assumption becomes that there's a gun behind your back, right? I like that. I get that. This is like my old man on propositions. Like he goes, I'm voting no on all of them. And I go, why? Because they haven't explained it to me. He says, it's not up to me to fucking figure out what your proposition's about. You need to bring the goods to me. Put it in language that I'm not confused, and then I'm going to vote for it. But otherwise, no. And I understand that. We don't have the time or resources to, so I'm just dismissive of all this shit until they can do a better job of it. And there's so much we can do.
Yeah, I love it, and I think that's what's going to allow affiliates to be here in 20 years.
You're gonna love our modern science and the scientific method course. That is something that is desperately needed teaching.
I think, did you guys announce that at the games recently that you were putting that together?
Yeah, I think we've been talking about
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. When should we expect it?
In 2020.
2020?
Yeah.
We will be signing up for it.
For sure.
I'll have you come in on the test run.
We'd love
be
it.
Happy to.
I will gladly fail that test. And
thanks, Coach. Appreciate
it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. So it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, one more time, please leave us a review on Apple Podcast and send us any feedback you have to @besthouroftheirday on Instagram and besthouroftheirday@gmail.com if you want to shoot us an email. We appreciate you. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.